I think that's it. Okay, it's recording. I need to edit it later because I'm just gonna be babbling, but
you'll get practice.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and so I'm just gonna start running through the basics. Julia, you can interject whenever, obviously. Where is share screen? Okay. So right now I just have this project up, which was a brief, like a quick edit that I just made for our Instagram. So honestly, I can just delete this too. So this is DaVinci Resolve. It looks more like Premiere Pro than iMovie, as you can see. Lots of things to take in here. I guess I'll just sort of like run through some of the buttons first. So obviously files up here where you can import your media. So I always just do this first one. I have never really used these, but these you can eventually use. And if you sort of like Google around, like you can eventually import like templates from websites, and they usually have like free templates since this is a free program. And there are other ways that you can do that in here too. Again, Google is your go-to for that. And those are nice, and sometimes they're tricky. It depends on which website you get them from. I can, at the end, give you a couple websites that have some DaVinci Resolve templates for like captions, title cards, but also like transitions. And then that website also has some free stock footage and stock music and sound. So I can drop those links in the chat later. So obviously this is your best friend in DaVinci Resolve. Always save your projects. For me, like whenever I leave this whole window open and then close, like literally just like physically close my computer, that's when it crashes. I always have to minimize it or save the project and close out of the whole thing before. And then project manager is where you can find all of your other projects that you're working on and go between them. I'm not going to do that right now because it's kind of slow. But yeah. So then also you can do a new timeline, which in simple projects of video editing, you probably won't use. I've only used them one time when I was like really frustrated with like this. I had spent a really long time with this first timeline of like editing, which this is your timeline, sort of this. I hope you can see my mouse. The video and audio, like this is your timeline, and you can technically scrap one and have multiple in a project, but that's kind of excess for now. And then you have your media pool, which I just closed out of. So this is your media pool. When you upload, when you import videos and photos, this is where it's going to go. Your effects library is already open. It's down here. This has video transitions, which you can just scroll around and play with. Audio transitions, your title cards. This took me a while to find when I was first figuring this out, but these are great. And these are like more specific effects that, again, I would use Google to sort of explore, but some of these are like, you know, when you can make the voice sound like an alien or something, like weird things. And OpenFX does some like overlaid blurs, which they don't look very realistic. So they kind of have like a cartoony sci-fi effect. And then more of these, which are, again, just like strange filters that they already have. I've used the light rays before. That was pretty cool. It does kind of like exaggerate light sources in your video. So this is just kind of fun to play around with. Is all of this making sense so far? Is this like cool? Okay. So I'm just gonna import a video, just even though that's probably a simple thing. Okay. Where are my videos? I'm gonna use video of Bill Gay just because I don't know, this is a project I was working on recently. So I'm gonna take these two videos and just import them. So you see how they come up here. So so this is basic. Most of this will be the same in iMovie. The buttons will be a little bit different. Julia, did your iMovie, were you able to open it or anything?
No, but I can try to update it now and see if it will let me. Hopefully it's the app and not my computer. But I'll
Okay.
try.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want your computer to crash, so don't worry about if it's like rough or anything. But yeah. Okay, so basically how you add. So normally we're all. Oh, somebody say something. Okay. So normally we're all used to sort of like the classic drag and drop, which is like it'll drag your whole video and all of your audio um, in your timeline. And so we see V1 for video, obviously, and A for audio. And so this is how I always expand these, or at least the audio, because I often sync up my video with the audio. So like that's a helpful tip, because then you can kind of see where like the next beat starts, and then if you're kind of like editing on a beat, that helps you with cutting. So up here real quick, these are just some helpful buttons, which Julia might have to like remind me about, because I think they're the same in Premiere Pro, but I don't really use much of these. But this is the razor blade, that's all I know. Wherever you hit it, it just cuts. So that's like the only one I use. But this one, you remember dynamic trim mode?
Yeah, I don't really use a lot of the like fancy stuff, but I usually just look it up if I need to.
Yeah.
But if you're just like cutting different clips together or trying to edit something down, the like razor blade, basically just like cutting stuff, is probably the easiest. And then if you like, I don't even know how to describe this, but when you like drag the video and you shorten it down, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that you can also do.
Yeah. So on DaVinci Resolve, if it has these two lines, it'll elongate the video and shorten the other one, So it sort of does that. Oh, by the way, this is obviously where you're looking to, this is your window to see what's happening on your timeline. And then when you open the inspector, which I'll get into more later, that's where all of your like basic adjustments for your video will be. So I'll explain more of that later. I like to keep that open just because it centers my image and I can just see it better, just personal preference. Anyway, so this is, of course, if you're dragging your whole video and audio down here. And so for iMovie and for this one, since they're pretty simple programs, it'll always drag your audio with your visual. Actually, on this program, you could probably figure out how to not, but to be honest, I've never spent the time to look that up. But for iMovie, it'll definitely take that. So just be careful if you're trying to, for example, if it's for a skateboarding video, if you have the music and then you're dragging in your skateboard video that, obviously has audio from when you took it on your phone or whatever, like make sure that when you put it in, the audio might overlay with your music. And so there are ways to adjust that by putting it on a different timeline, which I have to admit, I don't remember if iMovie if you can have multiple audio lines or not. But just keep that in mind, just that your audio might like overlay. So.
And then one other thing that I'll just add before I forget that I find helpful, especially if you're doing like a music video or like a skate edit or anything where you're trying to like match the video up with the sound, and like if your cuts you want to line up with like the beat or whatever, or like a transition, I usually will mark like where I want that transition to happen on the audio layer, so you can line up the red line, or I don't even know what to call that.
The playhead.
Yeah, with where you would want that to happen, and you can put a marker there. So that would be, I think you would press, is it the same in DaVinci Resolve where you press M?
Yeah.
That you don't have to like listen to it over and over again each time, so that it will like line up nicely. But that's just like a little thing, because I think it's pretty easy to get the basic editing down, but I think what's most important for making it not miserable is figuring out like a workflow that works for you. So, I mean, I'm really bad at that, but like naming your files, like putting markers down and trying to keep it organized in some way, I think is really helpful, especially when you want it to be like pristine. So yeah.
Yeah, so I put this marker in just by moving the playhead to where I wanted it and then hitting M on my keyboard. And you can also highlight your specific, your audio track and hit M again, and now it does it on the audio. So, and then if I do it here, it's the same thing where it'll do it on like whatever highlighted clip that you have. Okay, so let's say you didn't want the whole video, you only wanted part of this video, or you want to take multiple parts of this video. So what you'll do is you're kind of watching it. That was really loud. I like the audio is really loud on this one. So you're watching it through, and let's say, okay, I like this. So I hit I on your keyboard, and then kind of play it out, which I think it's going to be me talking. Okay. I'll just move my playhead. So let's say, can you see the this line that I'm talking about? I don't know if my, okay, so it's like right under the left-hand picture. Yeah, and so the dot is where I hit the I, and now the white line is just like where the playhead is, and I'm gonna hit O. So it's like, I always think, well, I mean, it is like in and out. So basically you hit I and then O wherever you want it to close. And then what next time that you drag, it only takes that section, as you can see. So I'm just putting it, I could just put it on top or something, whatever, I can move it. So then like, let's say it is on top though, and I want to move it to after this. Actually, I'm just gonna get rid of this. So always be careful if you click this one and then hit shift, and while you're clicking this one, it's going to highlight everything. But if you click your clip and then hit control while you click the next clip, it only highlights those specific ones. And now I only move those. So that's how you get like a smaller clip from out of your media pool. And then you can move those around. So then again, like when I'm doing videos with music and I never need this audio, I just, you just have to highlight it and make sure that you're only highlighting the audio track, and then that's when you hit delete or backspace. Oh, actually, that reminds me. So the difference between,
does it automatically separates the audio from the visual as soon as you put it in?
Yeah, well, so when I originally put it in, they're both, actually, no, right now they're not. Sometimes this thing is tricky and it'll have them both highlighted. So you just have to make sure that, like, what I usually do is I put them in, I like click elsewhere just to make sure until you get like the flow of it. And then I'll go back and click the specific clip that I want to cancel, or that I want to delete. So then this brings me to another thing. Okay, so a quick cut. So we showed you the razor cut, which is you have to go all the way to this toolbar and then all the way back down. So the quicker way, like the shortcut, is just Control B. And so again, right now, if I hit Control B, it's only going to be the audio. So I want to make sure that they're both highlighted, and I'll hit Control B. So then it just cuts wherever my playhead is, as you can see. And then the difference, so if I want to get rid of this space because it's awkward and I actually want these clips to go back to back, I'm going to highlight this space and hit backspace, and it'll drag. Well, right now it only dragged to the top, so I have to do it for both. Okay, wait, this is moving fast all of a sudden because there are like quite a few things there. So if you notice the red numbers, that's just showing, that's the program trying to tell you that you're like 12 seconds out of sync. So that's just like a trick. That's just like a tool to help you make sure that your audio and your video is still aligned if you have some sort of like dialogue or something that you're, using that audio from the clip. Did that make sense? That like also the backspace thing to move the whole timeline?
You've just got a question, like, where did you see that it's 12 seconds out of sync? Like, where did you look at that from?
So see this red, the +8?
Okay, yeah.
8 seconds. Yeah, so this just means that this video, like the program knows that these are supposed to go together, or like that these two are supposed to go together. And it's just, yeah, it's just saying that they're not in sync by 8 seconds. So I just have to move it. So if I hit backspace, this moves, that command moves all, if I had more back here, like more audio tracks, it would all move up by that 8 seconds that I just deleted. So then when you're deleting a clip, let's say I don't want this audio right here. So if I hit backspace, it'll leave a space, like a gap, and it doesn't move any of your other clips. But if I hit it and hit delete, it'll move your clips forward, which it's sometimes that's helpful, but other times, as you kind of see, that this just disrupted this, like this clip just cut into this other clip. So I never use delete. I always just backspace the clip and then backspace the space, because it can disrupt your clips around and potentially, you know, you lose a little bit of the previous clip, or maybe a transition gets deleted accidentally. So yeah, but basically the backspace and the delete and what we just did here is like really useful to like speed up the editing process. So did that all make sense and everything? Okay.
I just got, this might be a tough question, but like delete and backspace for Macs are like the same button. So I don't know.
Oh.
Like,
Oh man. I don't know. It's been so long since I've had a Mac.
but maybe there's some kind of command online that I could search. So it's
Yeah.
cool.
Julia, do you know? Backspace versus delete? Okay. Yeah, that'd be a Google search. Interesting. Maybe escape, or is there any like other big cancel button that seems all powerful? That's what delete is to me. I don't use delete very often. It freaks me out. Yeah, okay, we can look that up after. Okay, any other questions right now, just like about this part? Okay, so then on my list, I'm gonna show how to change the speed of a video, slow-mo and fast-mo, which is actually easier on iMovie, because I think that they have little effects in the tool area. But I'm gonna just show it on DaVinci Resolve right now. So this, I'm gonna do this clip. No, I'll do the big clip so you can see like this space. Also up here, this is the same for iMovie again. This is your scale bar, so it makes your whole timeline smaller so that you can see it versus obviously bigger. Again, when I'm doing like tight editing with music behind, I definitely make it really big because I like need to see where the music is changing, just to sync it up. So, okay, so this clip, I'm gonna make fast mo. So I double click and then I have all of these obvious things, and we can get into more of this later. But obviously I'm gonna go to change clip speed. Change clip duration is obviously just going to cut it more, but this is useful when you have maybe a sequence of clips and you know that you want them all to be 0.2. Maybe if you're doing stop motion, that's when I usually use change clip duration, because I'll highlight all of the photos that I just dragged in, and then I'll make them all like 0.0 or 0.2 seconds, and then they're all the same size, because your eye can actually really pick up on some of the inconsistencies of time. So, and then it's really laborious to have to go change it all independently. So that's kind of a quick trick. So changing the clip speed. I can't drag that anywhere. So obviously you have reverse speed, which is just going to put the whole video in reverse. There's definitely, like, this is on iMovie, again, in an effects bar, I believe. So it's not, I think you could also probably do it by double clicking on the clip, but there's also a section of the bar that has like a little like speedometer, and then I think within that there's like a bunny, of course, like for speeding it up, and then a turtle for slowing down, and then a reverse thing. So here you have the speed at 100. If you go above 100 and in between 100 and well, actually just above 100%, it's going to go faster. And and it'll readjust to your size. Sometimes it won't readjust. It'll actually just, if you make it slow-mo, well, it depends on like the clip that you have. That's kind of minutia. I won't get into that. So yeah, now it's being kind of slow. This might just be my computer. So DaVinci Resolve sometimes has trouble applying your effects while you're watching it in this area right here. So, okay, well, anyway, so I'll just show you how to, oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got a question. Does like DaVinci Resolve, can it handle like high resolution stuff? Like let's say you do 4K or like 2.7K. Does that depend on your computer specs, or does it depend on like the program?
Oh yeah, Julia, take that one.
Yeah, so usually what you would do if you're editing like a really large file is you would make a proxy. So basically it's just like I don't remember the exact steps of doing that, but there's definitely lots of YouTube videos online. But basically what it does is it makes like a proxy file, so like a placeholder basically for what you're editing, so that it doesn't take like an hour each time you make a tiny edit to render and load. Because if you, I mean, you can edit really large files in your timeline, but it's probably going to end up crashing, and those sorts of things are going to happen. So that would be my suggestion for that, because it would make everything a lot easier. And then once you go to export the file, it replaces them back again.
Oh yeah, here you go. Here's proxy mode. Yeah, I think that DaVinci can handle it. It does move slowly anyway. But yeah, I would research about this program specifically too, just before doing it in case you like your computer crashes or something. I mean, my computer has never crashed because of the program, but just the program always crashes whenever I like leave it and close my computer. So yeah, it's kind of frustrating, but yeah. So going back to this, so anything between 0 and 100 is slow-mo. And you see that it didn't adjust the size, because when I think it might only be when I move to slow-mo, and I don't know if this is like the version of DaVinci that I have or not, but it'll just kind of, it cuts at this part, like the whole fast-mo video that I just made slow-mo, it doesn't keep the whole length. It just sort of cuts to like where it was already cut before, which is sometimes nice when it's, you know, when you're going back and editing and changing the speed. Yeah, now it's definitely, well, now maybe it's fast. I don't know, that looks really slow-mo. Anyway, so that's basically, that's speed. And then going through these, so we have a opacity, which is fun to use. And you may have seen earlier, but when I brought in this other clip, I put it over. Some of this footage is really bad and shaky. So if you can see here, it created another, and I've created videos with like 20 different like video, Julia, what are these called? Tracks, I guess?
Yeah, it's basically like a layer. You could call it a layer.
Yeah, a layer. I've done stuff with like 20 layers, and you know, it moves a little slower, but it has some cool effects. And yeah, so then going more into that. So obviously opacity here, going down, kind of just like Photoshop. You can do some kind of wacky stuff with these effects. I like doing this one. This one's really cool. It just kind of like inverts colors. I haven't quite like figured out. I'd have to like stare at it for a while to figure out like what it's actually doing. But Yeah, so, and then make sure that you have obviously the specific clip that you're trying to edit in here highlighted. But okay, so these are some useful tips specific to DaVinci Resolve that kind of make it better than iMovie as an amateur video editor, in my opinion. Okay, so I always have a struggle zooming in. You know how on your mouse pad you will use like 2 fingers going up and down for like scrolling up and down and then like pinch? Again, I don't know if this is just my computer, but it has those 2 commands reversed for me. So when I pinch, it goes up and down, and when I scroll up and down, it zooms in and zooms out, which is just, it wastes a couple extra minutes. But hopefully that won't be the case for when you guys download this or whatever. But just warning you, it's kind of annoying. So right here, you can transform, crop, dynamic zoom, open FX overlay, and add annotation. So these are some really useful tools, specifically these 3. I use these in basically all my projects. So transform is pretty straightforward. You can make it smaller. You can drag it anywhere you want. If you unclick the lock there, you can smush it and stretch it and do all those fun things. If you get frustrated and like, oh man, I can't get it back to normal, you go right here and that resets the whole thing. But if it was maybe just the stretch, some of these you can just like, these are all the reset buttons, obviously. And then these diamonds or whatever, this means that it'll change over time. So you have your playhead at the beginning of the clip and you click that, and then you move your clip to the end, and maybe you make it like that. So then, again, you can see it's kind of glitchy. I'm just gonna get rid of this so it goes a little bit faster. But so that allows you to do like an action over time. So it'll be rotating. It can also zoom in and out over time if you click these dots. So they're kind of fun to play around with. These are your basic flip up and down. Yaw gives you depth, which is also sometimes fun to play with. Vice versa this way, you can kind of create some cool surreal worlds. Cropping, this, so if you go here, you switch to crop. You can obviously crop, and then if you have something underneath, it shows you that. If not, it's just black. And softness kind of like makes that cutting line softer, obviously. And then you can also still adjust, like if you prefer to use these dials, you can use them here as well, or you can, drag the square, and you can reset any of those as you go. And then dynamic zoom is pretty useful. I forgot if I still have it on rotation. I'm just gonna reset that. So dynamic zoom, you have to turn on. It will not, like, these are automatically, you can see that they're red. That means that they're on for each clip. But dynamic zoom, you have to click that and then click this to open. And you see, this is basically like those effects in iMovie, that like the Ken Burns effect, where it just like slowly zooms in. So that's basically what this is. The green is where it starts and the red is where it ends, and you can move those around however you want. You can even drag them this way, so it's like panning over the image. You kind of have to play around with this to get used to it, to like make sure that it's doing exactly what you want. But depending on like where you position them and how like much you zoom in or zoom out, that will all affect like the speed of the video moving and the direction and everything. So I hope you guys could see that on the video. And then just these down here, stabilization, it's not great if you have like a shaky video. If it's like a very like slightly shaky video, like minimal, it'll be useful, but otherwise it gives this very strange computerized warp effect. And, you know, you can use that to your creative advantage, but it's not a professional tool really. And you can, again, play around with like how you want it to stabilize and what strength. I've never used these. And then this, I don't think, I think I tried this one time, and you might have to pay for like DaVinci Premium, because this would have been cool because you can kind of like warp your shot and give it like a fisheye effect, or it's supposed to like counteract the fisheye effect. But yeah, you might have to pay for that. I didn't import any audio here, but audio can be imported into your media pool, just for if you're using music or whatever. Let me look at my list. I mean, that's mostly it. Okay, then the main things, I'm just making this smaller so that I can see the buttons down here. Okay, so these sections, media and cut, they basically are self-explanatory. I never use them, so I'm not going to really go into them. But this is your editing. So technically, cut is like that's the interface that you use when you're importing your media and you want to organize it and put it in all the bins and everything, which is like generally when you're doing like bigger projects and maybe you're doing it for a class or you're doing it in like a more like structured setting. So like whenever I do my video projects, I don't really organize them that much. I mean, that's also just a personality thing, whatever. But then your editing interface is right here, by the playhead and the layers. And then this is Fusion, which is where DaVinci has a lot of potential. And like you could Google for hours, just different Fusion tricks. There's so many videos online that they can show you how to do like a lens, like a more realistic lens flare, how to, I can't think of good examples off the top of my head, but you can do more effects. So we'll look at that real quick. You could do a mirror effect through this. So this is where it starts to look sort of more like Premiere Pro, like more professional looking and like not as accessible because it has so many different buttons. So I just recommend playing around with these because, you know, I don't know all of them. Sometimes, you know, you have happy accidents and sometimes you're like, oh my God, Control Z immediately. So what I usually use this interface for is when I'm doing a mirror. So if you click on media line 1, never actually read that. And you hit shift while you hit spacebar. This is just one tool that I've learned how to use on here. And so these give you a whole different, like these are all different like filter / effect / just little tools, whatever, that you can use to play around. So I use mirrors a lot because then you can make your video like a kaleidoscope too. If you go over here and you have this, and you can like make it rotate as you go, or adjust how much of a kaleidoscope it is. So that's kind of fun to play around with. And then over here you have color, which is where you can color correct. If you guys have ever used like Photoshop or any version of photo, like, you know, a photo edit program, you'll be familiar with this curve line. This is basically the same thing. Not really sure which one I'm editing right now. Oh, yeah, that one. So obviously this is how you can kind of play around with light, dark, colors. And then there are all these different kinds and they kind of tell you up here. So you can do all of these, you'll have access to all of these curves to kind of just play around with. And then what I also use for this, which I don't have a really good picture to use, I was going to show you guys how to do a green screen. I'm just going to use this leaf picture, which is not really a great example because it's not a flat background, but I think it'll be good enough to just show this. So whenever you want to do, you're gonna, if you have an object, and it doesn't have to be green or blue, it just has to be the same color, and contrast like your subject that's in front, whatever. So you go to this dropper, and then you go to select range, and you want to make sure that you're on this with the circles. And basically, you'll have this dropper, and you can bring it up here, and you click on the color that you want it to highlight. So actually, maybe the white will work, and I can just get rid of that. So this is where like the editing really happens. And again, this just takes practice and Googling to figure out different ways to use this. But these are called nodes. And so if you double click here, you can add a node. I haven't ever really used that, but I always add an alpha output. So alpha output is like in the same sense that when you pull in a PNG from Google and you put it in your Photoshop and it doesn't have a background, that black and or like the gray and white squares, like that's your alpha layer essentially. So it does the same thing. So I made an alpha output layer, and then I just drag it and I connect it to here. Okay, so this is what it always does. So you actually want to invert.
Wait, Sophie, what effect, like what did you click to get to the green screen? Was it the ultra key or like the chroma key? Because I know
Yeah,
that's one way to do it.
down
if
here.
that's the same thing.
What do you mean?
Because no, I've just never seen this before. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. I was just thinking the way that I've done it, because there's always a ton of ways to do the exact same thing. And what I've done is usually if you go to effects, video effects, and I've done this in Premiere, but if you do ultra key, you can basically do the same thing, but it looked simpler, but this also works fine. So I was wondering if it was the same thing.
It might just be because, well, I don't know, because I got this just from Google when I looked up how to do, green screen on DaVinci Resolve. It was like the first one. So I don't know if it's like DaVinci doesn't have that effect or something, or if I just found the harder way to do it or something. But this actually, I like this method because obviously this is a really bad example, but I've had projects where I'm doing a green screen stop motion project at home, and so the lighting is very inconsistent, and so I'll have different shades of green. And what I can do is I can zoom in here, and so once I've selected, I tried to select the white. So I tried to select the light in the background just because that was very bright. Obviously you can see that this is not a good example. But how I can add more hues. So if I go down back to the syringe, this plus syringe, will now, whatever I click on, it'll add it to like what I'm removing. So if I click this, well, obviously that just removed Bill Gay as well, because she's like the same tone as the tree in this because of shadows. So was that visible? Oh my gosh, it confuses me every time. I can't. Okay, there we go. Let me see if I have a better example. In fact, this right here might be a better example.
Really, with like green screen stuff, if you wanted to remove the background, all you need is to make sure that there's a somewhat solid color. The shadows usually don't matter too much, but there's a solid color behind you or behind the scene. Doesn't have to be green. It just has to be different from the foreground. So like it shouldn't be the same color as someone's clothes or skin, because then it'll key out that as well. So usually people do like a bright green because it's not going to be like someone's skin undertones, and usually people like not that many people wear bright green all the time, but you can really do any color. And I when I've done it at home and like wanted a green screen in the background, I've used like construction paper or literally like colored a piece of paper or like hung something up on the wall But yeah, it's pretty simple, and I I do it a lot because it's kind of fun. Yeah, and you can do more than one layer of it. So once something is removed, yeah, actually, never mind. They could get too complicated, but it is pretty easy to play around with.
Okay, here's a better example. I'm gonna crop this real quick to get rid of just like this. I just screen recorded that on my computer. Okay, so we're going back to the color part. So I click the syringe, hit this. You can kind of see that it has the whole green highlighted, and you just always have to invert it so that, because obviously I want the guy to show. And then that's when I will add the alpha output, drag to connect, and then he is alone. And this is just because there's another green, so I'll click this green to get that away. And this essentially adds on to, if I wanted to get like, and that's why this is kind of nice, because you can get more, you can like really clean up the green screen. And then
just a question with so now that you've like changed the background, whatever movement that thing makes it will completely like not, it'll like the outline will remain the same.
this crop around,
like
okay.
Yeah, like the image thing, like the statue thing.
Yeah.
You if it was to move, would it be would you have to do anything more to it? Like would it?
No, because it does it to each image. So the video itself basically stays the same. The background's just removed. And then sometimes if like the shot is panning and there's like a something else appears in the background, you might just need to like crop it. So usually you want to watch it once over to make sure nothing new shows up. Like, but in this video, for example, it's just the body and the green, so you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I got a clip that the guy isn't moving, but he could, in another one that I recorded, he kicks. So yeah, he's just moving and the green stays gone. But yeah, this is just a bad clip. But anyway, sometimes I have trouble where see how it's kind of cropped everything. That shouldn't be the case, and I would just, if I was working on this project, I would take some time to figure it out. Sometimes it depends on like what I had highlighted when I cropped it, but it shouldn't be like this. You should be able to, like the background image or video could be filling up the whole screen too. That was just some mistake in the process. Anyway, so okay, yes, I never really use this part because it's music and audio or Fairlight. But anyway, this is the most important part. So the most common mistake that probably occurs with DaVinci Resolve is, you've used iMovie before, so then you go to File and Export Project when you want to finish. But actually, you don't. You should go to the rocket ship down here, and this is how you actually get your video onto your desktop. So obviously this is not really a real video, but you save it here. You can also directly upload it to like YouTube and Vimeo, or have it in any of these other files that are you can use in other programs. So they're like good if you're collaborating on a project across programs. And then this is obviously where you save it just on your computer name. I've definitely played around with some of these, but MP4 is the classic when you export that. Generally, I will download a video in medium resolution, and just have that so that I can watch it and make sure that I didn't miss any like weird clip jumps or transitions that I just couldn't see because DaVinci was being choppy when I was watching it on the, like in the little whatever. So I usually just do that, but if you're confident, whatever, like you can choose your quality. You can also change the resolution and frame rate, like you have control over all of these. I've never really used advanced settings, but they're there. And then whenever this is all set, you just add to the render queue. And over here is the render queue. So you can see that obviously since I had a different project here before, I've downloaded it and I made some changes, downloaded it again. So it's the 4th job. So then I would just hit start render and it'll give me a percentage. And and then it'll just finish and it'll tell you when it's complete. And that's basically how you get your video off of the editing software. And it'll just be saved. I mean, well, really in whatever format you make it, but it's like a complete file. So yeah, any questions on that or on the whole sort of presentation? Any more buttons that you saw that want to know?
I've got a question about editing for like a screen, like a phone screen, like the like the size, I don't know what to call it.
Yeah.
Like when you want to make it so that it fits like well within that kind of phone screen, do you have any tips for that?
I don't have any like legitimate tips, but like if I had a project that I was trying to do that with, I would probably take a video just like with my phone in that portrait mode, and then I would click that in and then use that as a template just for like my other videos, and then crop them to kind of like fit that window. There's no, I mean, Julia, maybe like a template that you can put in. You're on mute. Julia, you're on mute.
I was just saying, I realize I have no idea what the dimensions of a phone screen are, but like the normal video dimensions are like 1080 by 1920 pixels. So if you wanted it to be something different, you could basically just, I mean, I'm sure that would be an easy search, but that usually is the standard. So if you were to see like a movie or something, that's usually what a video is. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that is also what a phone screen is. So actually, I'm going to look it up.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think, like, if you were trying to make maybe, an Instagram story for something and you wanted it to fill the screen, you would probably have to, like, obviously you would make it with these dimensions, but then all of your video is just happening in that, margin within it. But then if you zoomed it in, it might, definitely lose resolution. That's the other tricky thing, is just sending videos on phones and different apps, compressing it and sort of like ruining your resolution. Maybe there's like a new program to edit those. Yeah, I mean, you could I would just play around or Google it for DaVinci Resolve. I don't even think you could do it on iMovie, because iMovie doesn't let you sort of like move your, here's how I can do that.
Oh, also, usually the first video you put into your timeline, it crops everything else to that. So if you were to record something on your phone and then drop it into an empty timeline, it should just be the right size. Oh, and you can also do that even if you're not going to use the video. Like sometimes if you want it to be like the right format going forward, you could just drop in a video that's the right size format. So say it's like an MP4 that is the like a phone video size. You could then just put that in the timeline and then remove it once you have everything else in. I've done that before.
So would that mean that, like, you know, that when you export the video, it comes out exactly like the phone screen, and then it doesn't have like the black sides? Like,
Yeah, I think. Oh, so you're saying if it was like that portrait way?
yeah.
Not.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was thinking landscape. Um,
No, I'm sure you could
I
find
don't know. I don't think
somewhere.
I've ever done that. But yeah, I'm not sure. I guess you could probably just set your dimensions reverse, so that it is like, huh. Yeah, I actually don't know how to do that. That's a
Yeah,
good
I'm looking
point.
through it now. I would definitely Google. There's got to be something. I mean, there are like so many little tools here. And my disk space is filling up. Yeah, that would be something to look into. But yeah, any other questions? Cool. This ended up going a little longer than we expected, but I hope it was useful. And so going forward, okay, so I'll add in the chat these free websites. Oh, great! I didn't even see the chat while I was spewing all of this. So thanks, Julia. Okay, so Mixkit. Okay, so I'm gonna double check these websites before I set them. So these companies or these websites, Mixkit especially is really great because it has stock video, music, sound effects, and video templates. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop. You know, it has a pretty slim selection sometimes. And if if you're really dedicated to video editing and using stock footage, it does link you to, I believe it's called Indovo, which is a relatively affordable stock footage website. So you can find that through mixkit.co. And then for free music, kind of more interesting music that you haven't already heard in some commercial, because Mixkit is probably pretty popular. I use ArtGrid.io, Artlist.io. So one of those is video and one of those is sound. And the video is less accessible. You can sometimes find some free clips, but the music version of that website is really easy. The only thing is that technically you're supposed to actually have a subscription and use the license, or to purchase the license, but you can download it and you will, the music will have like Artlist.io like in it in different parts. So it's kind of a trick between maybe manipulating the music a little bit and making sure that you always give credit because of copyright and fair use situations. But yeah, those are basically my go-to websites when I'm working on projects, especially for SLOP, since we're kind of making it, it's not a personal project, it's like a club, so we don't want to really violate any copyright laws. Which really, like when you post them on YouTube, if you post like a famous song, by some musician, and you don't have the license, YouTube just you just can't make money off of it, which I don't think anybody's really trying to make money, at least on SLOP, with their videos. But I mean, I think technically, like legally, you would be susceptible. You could be sued by the owner of the song. That's something I like learned recently when I was doing research in it. But it's not like common that Ariana Grande will come after you for like using her song or something. I don't know, whatever. But Yeah.
Also, yeah, I had a professor say just use whatever stuff you want because at this stage, no one's probably going to get upset about it. And if they did, I think she had something happen to her once where she was like sent a letter for like cease and desist, and she basically just had to like remove the song. So I say use whatever you want and it's probably fine. But
Yeah. Especially if you use a bit to SLOP. I mean, I do think that there is not really protection, but just like it is a student organization. So it's under the umbrella of student film and like creative projects. So yeah, do with that what you will. Julia, I'm so proud of you for being an aspiring influencer. Good. And yeah, so then moving forward, basically, we have another workshop that we'll do soon, which is actually going to be for like photo editing and graphic design, with our very own social media manager, who's a pro at Photoshop, and Canva is the free version. Actually, this program called GIMP is the free version that we'll also be kind of going through. Canva is just like a very basic free version, which can be frustrating for people who have big design ideas. But we'll probably still do like a brief introduction to that just because it's very accessible. But yeah, would love to hear feedback. Feel free to DM us anytime if there are other specific things that you like want SLOP to do and everything. But you know, we hope this is like a good intro video that will like encourage you guys to like research more too, and like just ask us questions and whatever. So yeah, gotta share the love of video editing. It's just very few people at Haverford who really engage with it. So yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. You guys said some things that I didn't even know to think about, which is really good to know. So
Oh, awesome. Yay. My years of dealing with crashed DaVinci Resolve have paid off.
you got to keep saving, Sophie.
I know.
Always save as you go along. I've
It
learned
was
that one.
literally the worst thing. I was working on a music video for Bill Gaye, and I was so proud of this like new effect that I like tried to figure out, whatever, and it crashed. And I had done it to every clip, and I only knew how to do it individually. Oh, it was so frustrating. I just changed the concept of it afterwards. I couldn't do it again. But yeah. All right. Well, I gotta go. So
I appreciate you guys. Thanks.
yeah, of course.
Bye,
Take care,
guys.